It's been a bit of a wild week over on twitch.tv for many reasons, but what I'm making a video about is their most recent announcement, which has to do with the partner subscription revenue split, because that has a little bit more of a spillover effect onto YouTube, many people's content strategies, maybe me a little bit with live streams and YouTube, so I thought it'd be more appropriate to actually speak about here. So let me talk about what it actually is. They posted a blog post this morning that was rumored to be happening for many, many months. The writing was sort of on the wall, especially when last month they announced that they were dropping the exclusivity requirement for partners to stream only on Twitch and not be able to stream anywhere else. If you were unaware, that's been a requirement basically since Twitch's partner program inception, that if you're a partner, you may only live stream on Twitch and no other platforms. They dropped that. So now you can't simulcast all over the place on multiple platforms at the same time if you're a partner. But I could go live on YouTube right now with no implications. I'm not breaking my contract. And that's why you saw that over the last month, I did a couple of RL Craft live streams on the main channel. Maybe you didn't see, but I did do them. And there may be more of those going forward. Maybe on CaptainSparklez 2, though, I'm not sure. I'm still kind of trying to think through the best place to do live streams for me if they're going to happen on YouTube. But anyway, back to the changes. I think that part of why they announced they were dropping the exclusivity requirement is because the plan was that that would be followed by an announcement that they were changing the sub split from 70-30 in favor of the creators to 50-50. Now, this is only a subset of creators who had 70-30 sub-split arrangements with Twitch. For the majority of partners out there, it's already been 50-50, but now they're making a change so that for people who have a 70-30 split, for the first 100,000 earned through subscription revenue, it'll retain that 70-30 split. For anything after that, it will go to a 50-50 rev share split. Now, there's a little bit of ambiguity. It's a little bit up in the air as to whether that means 100K in revenue overall, so 20,000 subscriptions, or if it means 100,000 paid out to the creator, which would mean a little bit more than 20,000 subscriptions total cumulative over the course of the year. I tend to think that it is 100,000 in revenue, which would mean $70,000 paid out, because it is much easier math to be able to use as an example here. And it does say revenue on the blog post. I'm sure that they will offer some clarification as the agreements roll out. This change starts in June 2023, so there is some time before it takes place. But I'm inclined to think that it's 100,000 in revenue, 70,000 paid out, and after that, it will go to 50-50. If it is better, then great. If it's 100,000 paid out to the creator, great. I would just expect the worst, and then if it goes to the better side of that, then hey, you get a little bit of surprise to the upside. That said, this change, it doesn't impact a significant amount of streamers on the site. I believe the estimate, depending upon if it's 100,000 revenue or 100,000 earned by the creator, varies from, 500 to a couple thousand people on the high and low ends. So it's not a massive amount of people. And it seems to me that the anger is less so that those people will be making less money, but more so that everybody should sort of be bumped up to that threshold of getting the 70-30 split, because a 70-30 split in favor of the creator is sort of the standard across almost all transaction-based revenue online. App Store, Google Play, YouTube memberships, they all pay out 70-30, and a 50-50 split is kind of unusual because transaction revenue has no incremental cost to the platform. Whether a user has sold 10 subscriptions on their channel or 10,000 subscriptions on their channel, outside of the processing fees on those transactions, there is no incremental costs on Twitch's end to that, and that's why usually the split is higher on that than, say, advertising, where advertising requires a sales team to exist that Twitch employs to go out to advertisers and say, hey, do you want to advertise on our platform? Or advertisers reach out to Twitch, say, hey, we want to advertise. They have to structure those deals. There's a lot of work involved in getting ads to fill on a platform. And therefore, when it comes to YouTube, it's a 55% split in favor of the creator, but much less than the 70-30. But that's because, again, there is a lot more legwork on behalf of the platform to get those ads in place than there are someone going, hey, I want to support the person that I'm watching. I'm going to pay $5 a month in order to support them, which doesn't incur any costs on Twitch's side after they've built the infrastructure to offer those payments and the emotes and stuff. But that's already in place. So in doing this, it is essentially just taking revenue that doesn't have additional costs on Twitch's end and shifting it in favor of Twitch, adding it to their own revenue. Now, like I said, on the plus side, most of the people who are impacted by this are already making a pretty good amount of money. So it's very unlikely to take people who were streaming full time and push them back to, I need to find another job to supplement. There are obviously people out there who employ a team, contractors, they have costs associated with their business, with their streaming, that this could potentially really negatively impact. So I'm not minimizing that. But again, I think that the annoyance on behalf of anyone who's upset by this should be more so probably directed at the fact that a 50-50 revenue share split is pretty non-standard across transaction-based revenue. Anyway, the change is what it is. I don't think this is one that will be revised, even if there is lots of community backlash, because I actually think the reasons for this, the reasons I think, I'm speculating this is happening, are actually kind of concerning to me. And it does make me a little bit concerned for the future of Twitch as a platform, because I don't think this is a situation where Twitch is like, oh, we're already making so much money, but let's go and make some more by scraping this additional revenue off of creators. I really don't think that is the case at all. What I think is happening here is that, and it this is going to get into boring stuff for a lot of people, so I apologize, and if you tune out, I won't hold it against you, but for the past 20 or so years, since the end of the tech and telecom bust in the late 90s, early 2000s, we've been living in a continuously decreasing interest rate environment with easy money policy, where it's easy to borrow to fuel and fund growth for these tech companies, these growth companies. Amazon has benefited from that greatly. Sites like Twitch, when they were created, they were able to raise massive amounts of venture capital funding in order to be able to operate at a loss, just purely focused on bringing in as many users as possible to be watching, trying to lure in streamers by offering favorable terms to them in order to stream on the platform. We are now, as of this year, essentially, really flipping that the other way. Interest rates are rising. Companies are very concerned about the future. These companies that were predicting infinite growth on the back of super low interest rates, being able to fundraise infinitely, essentially, and operate on a loss until they can figure out how to fix that in the future. All of a sudden, that's sort of coming crashing down, or there are expectations of that crashing down. And as a result, they have to look at all of the entities that are under their umbrella. In Amazon's case, they have to look at all the different companies that they own and say, okay, you're not profitable. You haven't been profitable. We figured, okay, that's fine. You're growing. But now we really have to shore up our balance sheets. And you need to figure this out. Because in order to actually keep you as something that's running under the Amazon umbrella, you have to become profitable now. And so basically, they have to do something. They have to show that they are able to make money somehow, and this is their attempt to steer in that direction. I'm sure they're well aware that in doing this, it's going to create a significant backlash, and it could prompt people to jump ship, start focusing on streaming on other platforms. And I think they're well aware of that risk, but they're in essentially a do or die position as instructed by Amazon leadership. This, again, is totally my speculation. I don't have any insider information to confirm any of this, but I think that is probably the only reason they'd be doing this, knowing how much of a backlash it will create. So it does make me a little bit concerned that Amazon is essentially looking at Twitch and saying, we need this to be profitable, otherwise we can't keep it running. And if Amazon decides we can't keep Twitch running, I don't know what happens. Do they try to sell off Twitch? Do they try to spin it off into its own company, but then it'll have to raise funds in order to actually be able to keep operating if it's operating at a loss? And I think the biggest problem there is competition is really good in any industry. And part of the reason why I've, kept on Twitch, despite the fact that obviously YouTube streaming is a thing and I have a bigger audience on YouTube, is that I like to have diversification. I like to be on multiple platforms, so I'm not putting all my eggs in one basket. And it would be not good to see that just fall away and not have another option. Because when you don't have other options, all of a sudden, it's with my internet. I only have one internet company that I can choose from, so they can kind of do whatever they want. Because what am I going to do? Switch to somebody else? I can't. And that's a bad position to be in. It's not fun. And so I want Twitch to succeed because it is good to have multiple choices because it benefits the creators. So it's a bummer to see this because it makes me concerned about Twitch's future. They used an example in their blog post of their costs associated with serving video content. I really hope that they're exaggerating. They must be slightly, because they're using market rates for AWS when they are Amazon. So you would think that it would just be at cost, which I certainly hope it is. Otherwise, that's very strange and inefficient. But it says that live video costs for 100 concurrent viewer streamer who streams 200 hours a month are more than $1,000, which I know that video content is very, very expensive to serve. But that seems like that's a lot. And I certainly hope it's less for them. Because they are Amazon, so it shouldn't be at their market rates. But I also like that they use 200 hours as an example, because it's like way more hours of streaming than a full-time job. It's just like, I feel like, I don't know, maybe 100 hours would have been better. So you're not like, yeah, this person is putting way more time in than they actually should have to for a full-time job, and they're not really taking breaks, and they just go a lot. But regardless, so the thing is, they really want to drive more revenue from ads because, whether or not this person streams 20 hours a month or 200 hours is probably, a pretty minimal impact on how many subscribers they're going to have. But the costs associated with serving that are going to go up linearly, more or less, on Twitch's end if that person streams a lot. So, ideally, it's like a gym membership. Gyms hope that you pay the membership, but then you basically never go, right? In this case, the hope is that you get a good amount of subscribers, but then just stream kind of the minimum amount to where they're not unsubscribing. Stream the minimum amount where they stay subscribed, but you don't have to serve that much bandwidth. That would be kind of your ideal Twitch user. But if you are going to stream a lot, then they're trying to get more people to serve ads. And I think they've been effective at doing so for the past few months because they've developed this ad incentive program, which gives you basically a guaranteed amount for running X amount of ads per hour of streaming for a certain amount of hours per month. So, and I fully admit I've opted into those because it's been more than I would generally see from ads before. It's a tempting amount. And so I think they have been successful at getting more ads to be run on the platform. But also in doing so, you're basically just, once you run 3 minutes of ads per hour, you are essentially opting yourself out of having pre-roll ads automatically running on your channel, which you can't get rid of. So a lot of people see, okay, well, I can get this guaranteed amount. Plus, if a new person trickles into my stream, then they're not getting interrupted by a pre-roll. They can just head straight into the content. And so it's better at bringing in new viewers, in theory. And so that's why I think a lot of people see the benefit of doing that sort of thing. So I think their goal is to expand their ad program as a way to try to, shore up revenue. But to have to do it at the expense of their subscription program isn't a very good look. And it shows that there's probably some very stern warnings coming down from Amazon leadership that there needs to be a turnaround in the platform. And that's the biggest part that concerns me. I want Twitch to stay here, and I want Twitch to be competitive. It is good for everyone. And so it pains me to see this sort of thing. I think another effect that this could have is you could have streamers who are directly impacted by this going and looking at, okay, so here's how many subscriptions I can have in order to hit this threshold. And they may start telling their viewers like, hey, I'm basically at the threshold. Let's move over to YouTube now. If you're going to subscribe, consider not doing it here on Twitch. Consider becoming a member over on YouTube so that, we're getting the most we can out of Twitch's 70-30 split. And then anything after that, we're able to get the 70-30 split on YouTube. And I think that ends up being basically a net negative to Twitch. So it'll be interesting to see if this actually ends up benefiting them at all, rather than it just being kind of a temporary Band-Aid to appease executives at Amazon who are saying we need to see some changes here in order to justify continuing along with Twitch. I want to do a rough calculation here, and like disclaimer, real rough. I'm sure it's not really all that accurate, but just to see like how much additional revenue Twitch could be making off of this change at the expense of backlash and people looking into other platforms. So I saw some estimates on Twitter, people saying it's probably around 1,000 partners who are on a 70-30 split who make over the threshold where it's going to switch to 50-50. So, okay, let's go with that number. Let's say it's 1,000. And then here's where I really just have to pull a number out of my hat, okay? I'm going to guess that the yearly subscription earnings of those 1,000 people are on average, let's say, $400,000 a year, and that's probably driven more so by the really high-end outliers on the top end of that scale. Let's say it averages $400,000 a year. Okay, well, the first $100,000 is treated exactly the same, so there's no additional revenue on Twitch's end from that. The next $300,000, though, that's going to be treated instead of at a 70-30, that's going to be treated at a 50-50. So that means an additional 20 cents going to Twitch on the dollar for all of that. So you do 1,000 for the amount of people times 400,000 minus 100,000, so 300,000, and then times 20 cents, which is the additional amount of income that Twitch would be making off of all of those subscriptions. And you get $60 million. So that's essentially the balancing act. Is this announcement and the risk of people jumping ship worth an additional $60 million to Twitch's bottom line? And they decided yes. Again, it might not be $60 million. Could be more, could be less. I'd argue it might be less. It's not an insignificant amount, though, to a company that isn't at the moment profitable. So I'm sure that Amazon leadership would see that and say, yes, this is a step in the right direction. Please do it, even if it might be a little bit short-sighted. Anyway, for the few of you who are still here, who I haven't bored to death talking about interest rates and doing math in a video, maybe you'd be interested in the up-and-coming finance podcast, Marginal Advice. It's actually not where I was planning to go with that, but it is a real thing. But anyway, just as far as how it ties back to me, with or without this happening, I like the non-exclusivity. And as you saw, I already did a couple of streams here on the main channel. I'm just having a bit of an internal debate as to when I do YouTube streams, if I should do them on this channel or if maybe I should do them on CaptainSparklez too, because obviously that's where the VODs go up already, so it kind of fits that content style better. Even though I let the streams go to unlisted after I do it here and then still upload it to CaptainSparklez too, I'm open to your thoughts and your feedback, because memberships I have enabled on this channel. But if I then start streaming on CaptainSparklez too, even though there's not a lot of members on this channel, I still would feel like bad. So would I then disable memberships on this channel and then move them over to CaptainSparklez 2, or just enable them on both? I don't know. I just want to treat those people fairly. And so that's kind of what I'm going back and forth with. I would still let the live streams go to unlisted and then just upload the VOD, because I don't like having like the heads and tails of starting the stream, taking a sip of water, And then, reading off the notifications at the end. And if we're doing multiple things in one stream, I want to be able to split that into videos. So that wouldn't change. It would just be which channel has the live. And I've kind of been going back and forth on how that should work. And I'm open to feedback. But it's funny that diversifying with live streaming now has me like going back to doing more on YouTube, which has sort of always been my main platform. And live streams, in a way, are a way to create content for CaptainSparklez too. So anyway, it's something I'm thinking about how to do, and I'd like to do them more regularly, because I think even if it's like a once a week thing, it's still good to have that additive, like, okay, we're doing this on YouTube maybe one day a week or something. Anyway, so let me know what you think, if you have any feedback, or, I'll end up just figuring it out and doing what I'm gonna do. Well, oops, this is gonna end up being like a 20-minute video, isn't it? It's not what I was going for, but anyway, let me wrap things up quickly. Maybe give a bit of advice from an old washed-up YouTube grandpa to anyone maybe who's watching this who is a creator who could maybe be impacted by things like this. Just diversification is very important. Try to build up other platforms on top of Twitch. And also, YouTube admittedly is a better platform for discoverability. I'll have people who come into Twitch chat and say, hey, how did you build up an audience? And I'll say, I didn't build up an audience on Twitch. I built up an audience on YouTube and then said, hey guys, I'm streaming on Twitch if you're interested in watching. So I can't really even give advice for how you would build up an audience specifically on Twitch. And as many complaints as I've had with the YouTube algorithm, I will admit, at the end of the day, it is a kingmaker. And overnight, it can just put you in front of the eyeballs of millions of people who are going to be interested in your content and follow you. And then you can say, hey, guys, I live stream too. Go check it out. So something to keep in mind there. Really good to make content on YouTube in addition to your streaming. So I'm sure you've heard it before, but I'll just reiterate as the old guy. So anyway, I hope for the best for the platforms, for the streaming ecosystem. Competition is good, and I do hope that there will come a time in the future where the macroeconomic environment allows for Twitch to pivot, or they are able to find other supplemental ways to bring in revenue where they can make it 70-30 for everyone, no limit. We'll see if that day comes. Until then, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.